Ohayo gozaimasu everyone, or welcome for my English-speaking viewers. Welcome to part 2 of my mini-series on restoring the GC8 rear quarters. You can already see that I kicked off the video immediately with applying some body filler from Bondo brand. The body filler is also used to apply over the grinded down welds. Now my welds aren't perfect by any means, as I mentioned in the previous video, but that's okay. I'm learning along the way just like y'all are too. And now I'm going to fast forward and skip to the end result of this filler just like this. And boom, that's what this filler looks like applied to this rear quarter panel. Now since that filler has set and I switched locations where I was doing the body work, I am using my Milwaukee M18 Fuel 5-inch orbital sander with an interface pad and P120 grit sandpaper to smoothen out the body filler. I know what y'all are gonna say next. Why ain't you using a DA sander or have a vacuum hooked up? Well, first off, it's what I had available to find when I was in the US for a few days at the beginning of the year that wasn't corded or pneumatic, since I already have M12 and M18 tools. It's just what made sense to me, plus it's a great tool, especially with the interface pad. Secondly, I don't have an outlet down here in my carport, so I have to run a long extension from my house above to down here. Also, I just don't have the space for a large wet dry shop vac at the moment. Right here I'm using a Walmart die grinder with a 2-inch hook and loop attachment. Now everyone complains about this not being a good battery powered die grinder. I'm also guilty of that, but I also repurposed it as a detail sander, which is on the lowest speed and is perfect for it, and it won't take off too much material when you're doing body work, especially with body filler. Another tip for using this is you can also attach a 2-inch interface pad to it and it'll soften the scratches on the body filler. Now next, after this base of sanding is done, I'm cleaning out the dust with some 70% isopropyl alcohol, since I don't want to introduce a water-based cleaner to it and ruin the filler. I'm just trying to wipe off the surface and remove as much as I can with a microfiber towel. And I started masking off the door edge, since I'll be sanding a lot closer to the edge and I want less work down the road for me. You don't necessarily have to tape around the door edge, it's just I want to take an extra precaution, and also I'm going to be painting the doors down the road, so I'm not going to necessarily sand with the doors open or closed. I don't really care that much. Same thing for the rear of the body. I'm taping off the edge around the passenger side tail lamp to minimize messing them up. Now a lot of y'all will also say, why not just take them out? Well, I already tried and I discovered an ungodly amount of RTV holding it in, and I want to save that migraine for another day. So the next stage of using body filler is going to be using a short strand body filler. It's going to adhere amazingly to the existing filler of the panel, but on the counter side of it, it's not very easy to sand because of all the fibers, and it's definitely doable. Alright y'all, so I applied the short strand fiberglass filler onto the body, and now I'm currently sanding it down. It's going to be just layers of sanding and body filler and sanding. Once I get my desired shape what I want, I'm going to block it from there, and then I'm going to prime it to find my lows. And then once I find all the lows, I'm going to use glazing putty and go over that, block it down, and then prime it for my final priming stage. So we've applied the product. So the big challenge with any wheel arch repair is going to be obviously the door fitment, but also because the panel is about 1/4 of an inch shallower than the door, so I have to raise the body line and I have to recreate the body line that's right here, and the one I have to shape under here. So it's definitely going to take a lot of time, a lot of sanding, and a lot of layers of body filler. And also we're going to block sand this next, so that way we can at least get the top part a lot closer to the factory roundness. We applied a really good layer of it, so I pretty much just want to use this Bondo for the outside portion of the fender patch. So for this sanding portion on the top, I'm going to be using a P220 grit. It's going to be just enough of an aggressive cut for this body filler, and then I'm going to be using a sponge on the Scotch-Brite surface, so that way when I'm sanding I won't create any hot spots. If I was to use a hard piece of wood, I could easily get more unevenness, but I'm trying to even out this round this top part. Knock all this down. So now I'm going to switch to my Milwaukee sander, and we're just going to do a really light sand with a 300 grit sanding disc. So we're going to use a 320 grit sanding disc, and then we're going to use an interface pad on this Milwaukee sander. Just going to place it on there. Be sure your holes align, so that way all of it goes in the bag. So I just did a bunch of sanding on here, and we're making progress. The body line is getting straighter and straighter. So what we need to do is we need to keep this gap uniform all up here, and I'm also gonna have to take off still a bunch of material on the side, so that way we can get it flush with the door. And we're gonna mark where we need to still sand. So we have a really good gap right here, and we have a really tight spot right here. So we're gonna mark this probably to here, and we're gonna stop probably here. In terms of the panel protruding from the body, I'm gonna mark it right along the door, just like that. So we get a really crisp sanding line. All right, so we are a few days now into the sculpting of the rear fender. So I have layered this yellow body filler on, and I smoothened it down, and then I went over again to fill in other imperfections, and we're basically going to do this until we get our desired shape, especially here in the rear arch and on the lower part where it connects to the rocker panel. This trim, I'm pretty much going to be adding body filler and getting it flat and flush along the side here. So we're going to go through with a sander, and we're going to go through and flatten all this out, and then we're gonna do 320 grit on the outside. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through with this Hyper Tough die grinder with a sanding adapter for a 2-inch sanding disc, and I'm gonna use a 320 sanding disc with an interface pad. This is actually a little trick that I've been using for a while now. I'll use the die grinder on the lowest speed setting because it actually acts as a really good detail sander for half the price of buying a name brand one. Alright guys, so this is the product that I was using, that yellow stuff that I was just sanding. We're going to apply some more to fill in some imperfections on that outer part of the panel. I'm going to show you guys how to mix this. This is all in Japanese. This brand is called 99 Kubo, and it'll come with an instruction manual, but it's all in Japanese, and I'm going to show you guys how to get the perfect mix with this stuff. So the contents is it's going to come with this little stirring spoon. So you're going to stir it up, and then you're going to apply it on your mixing surface. So in this case I'm using cardboard. It's all I have. I know there's a lot better stuff to use, and you specifically want to use something that's non-porous, but I don't really have a ton of choices right now, so I'm going to be using a bunch of spare cardboard. So by the instructions it says per golf ball you're going to want to use the hardener that comes with it, approximately the size of a pachinko ball. So I'm going to show you guys that. So we're going to put the spoon back in the body filler can. Then we're going to take our hardener, we're going to knead it up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to apply about that much filler. That is all you need. So the difference between this stuff and the traditional US body filler is this stuff takes about 1 hour to fully harden, which is actually really good because you can actually mold it for a while before it actually starts to harden. It'll give you a lot longer of a cure time, but if you're patient, you might end up getting better results using this stuff. So when you mix it, just like regular American body filler, you're just gonna mix it, knead it, and you can just keep mixing this stuff until it's homogeneous and yellow in color. And then I'm going to show you guys the filling action with this body filler.